Hi everyone, welcome back to episode 7, I believe, of the Oregon Coast Chronicles. Today I want to talk about something a little bit sensitive. It is something I've discussed on my blog, and it's something that most likely will bring trolls out. But it is something I have seen show up on Twitter and on Facebook, and it seems to me that there's a lot of discussion about it. What I'm talking about is suicide. Suicide is a hard word to say. It's an even harder word to hear, especially when you're told a loved one has committed suicide, or at least has attempted it. In my case, it wasn't a loved one. It was me. The week before Thanksgiving in 2003, I'd had it. My bipolar was completely out of control. My anxiety was unmanageable. My living situation was toxic, and I just felt completely overwhelmed. I felt like there was just no other way. I was done. So I went to my pill bottles and I grabbed my bottle of Klonopin, which ironically enough was for my anxiety, and I downed the half bottle that was remaining. Then I did something that probably saved my life. I panicked. I wanted to back out of it. So I called the crisis line for my former counselor. At that point I was without a counselor, and told them what I'd done. They got my address from me, they got all my information, and they told me they would be sending someone. That someone ended up being the police and an ambulance. I texted a friend and told her what I'd done. She said she was on her way, and she also contacted my husband, who was out of the house at the time, and the two of them arrived at the same time, which was also about the time the police and the ambulance arrived. I remember seeing them come in, and I think I remember them asking me questions. I'm not sure. Because the next memory I have is of walking through the mental hospital corridor into a room where there were 3 other women sleeping. It was about, I think I remember it being about 2:30 in the morning. Even that's not that clear. But I was basically put to bed, and that was it. Except that wasn't it. Every half hour they were in checking my vitals. I was still very out of it, so I wasn't really aware. It finally started wearing off around 6 or 7 in the morning, enough that I was cognizant of where I was. So I got up, I got my vitals checked, got blood drawn, and I ate breakfast. Then I met with a representative of the court. They were there to decide if I was a threat to myself or to society. I wasn't a threat to society. They'd already decided that. But I was, to them, a threat to myself. Which I can understand given what I just tried to do. So they were going to recommend to the court that I have an involuntary hold. What an involuntary hold is, for those who don't know, means I would have no choice but to stay in the mental hospital until the court system said I was healthy enough to leave. So they told me that they were going to recommend to the court that I be put under an involuntary hold and left. And then I was in limbo because I couldn't leave, but the court hearing hadn't happened yet. My meds weren't really being adjusted at that point because no one was really sure what was going to happen with me. So I'm wandering around unmedicated, kind of. They kept me on the same meds that I'd been on when I tried to commit suicide, but they wanted to adjust things but weren't able to at that point. Not until after the court hearing. Then the court hearing came. I was shackled like you would shackle a violent criminal. Ankles and wrists, with a chain running between them, shoved in the back of a police car. Transported to the courthouse, set outside of the courtroom, still shackled, freezing, wanting to scream, wanting to run away, unable to do anything. Then I was brought in, and I knew I couldn't say anything. It was going to be pointless, so I kept silent. I heard my name called, I heard the judge's decision, and that was it. I was taken back to the mental hospital, still in shackles. I wasn't taken out of those shackles until I was back in the mental hospital, back in the common area. Well, a day later, I was told that I was being transferred to another hospital because the facility I was in was really only a temporary facility. I was not thrilled with that idea because they were sending me to a hospital I knew nothing about, but I didn't have any choice in the matter. Involuntary hold. So, once again I was shackled, wrist and ankle, and shoved in the back of a police car. And taken across town to a new hospital. I think that hospital is what truly saved my life. It was a small hospital, only 50 beds. The people there cared. The psych techs genuinely wanted you to get better. It wasn't that it was their job, but they didn't act like you were an inconvenience or they were just there to get a paycheck. They checked up on you. If you looked like you were having a problem, they came and sat down with you. They talked you through it. If you were having a problem, they would stop what they were doing if they could. Obviously, if they were in the middle of something important, they would finish that first. But then they would still come and sit with you and help you work through it. They never made you feel like you were a burden. They made you feel like you were a person. And that making me feel like I was a person slowly drew me out of my depression. The nurse practitioner who was changing my meds around listened, which was something else that made me feel like a person. They made me feel like I mattered. And that made all the difference. My husband made me feel like I mattered too, don't get me wrong. But even he couldn't stave off the absolute feeling of worthlessness that overwhelmed me that cold November day. But someone who was outside my family, outside my household, outside my circle of friends, told me I was worth something. Helped me find that sense of self-worth again. I have carried that now for 3 years. I have backslid into suicidal ideology a couple of times, but it comes, I look at it, go, fuck you, and move past it. It's like, why? I have a good life. Why am I feeling so worthless? Why do I feel like nothing is right? And I can move past it. But every year there are thousands who don't. And we need to remember that it's not always because suicide is not a cry for attention. It's because someone feels like there's no other way out. That's how I felt in November of 2013. And that's how most suicidal people feel at the time they try to commit suicide. So if you know someone who's tried and survived, understand the strength it takes to continue living every day for them. Don't look down on them. Don't bring it up unless they do, because I can guarantee you I don't want to be reminded of it. But seriously, don't look down on someone who's survived a suicide attempt. They are not weak. They are not stupid. They are not crying out for attention. They simply are overwhelmed and done. On that note, I am ending this vlog. This has been a serious one and one close to my heart. I will be back next week with a new vlog, and we will see where it goes from there. Thank you for watching, and I hope everyone has a good week.